Welcome to Sulphur Springs, Texas, where it's time to bring a truly epic season of National STOL to a close. Some truly legendary pilots and aircraft flying into the home of Legend Aircraft Company for Lonestar STOL, where later this weekend, the national champions will be crowned. We're deep in the heart of Texas, where bush planes are born and where STOL conquerors are forged. If you're new here, don't worry. We'll teach you everything you need to know. Let's gear up for a special Halloween practice session today. Welcome to National STOL's Lonestar STOL 2024.
And welcome to Sulphur Springs, Texas, everybody. It's time for practice. Happy Halloween, by the way, here at Sulphur Springs Municipal Airport. My name's Ryan Dombrowski, and I am so honored to bring all of this STOL action to you here deep in the heart of Texas, where the stars at night are big and bright, and so are the bush wheels. It's going to be a really intense and really fun weekend. We are kicking off. Man, it is STOL day after STOL day after STOL day. We're going to be practicing today, this afternoon, until basically the sun goes down. Then we're going to practice tomorrow morning a little bit, especially to give room for competitors that were weathered out. We had really rough weather this morning here in Texas. We needed to give our competitors some extra time to get here. That's how airplanes work. You got time to spare, go by air, as they say, as the old timers say. Practice tomorrow morning. Lonestar STOL competition tomorrow. That's the last chance for season points for all of our competitors. And then based on who does what there, who gets what points in Lonestar STOL, we're then headed to the national championships on Saturday. It is going to be there is a lot of heavy competition that is getting ready to happen this weekend. But first, if you're new here, if you're wondering, how does this all work? Well, don't worry. I'll help you through it. I'll teach you all about flaps, ailerons, rudders, elevators, maybe a little bit of aerodynamic theory in there. Well, don't at me, bro. I'm not I'm not an engineer. We're going to talk about how airplanes work. We're going to talk about how STOL works. And to kick that off, let's explain how this competition works right now.
Takeoff and landing competitions are simple. We have the pilots here competing in separate classes to get the lowest score possible. As you see behind me, we have the start-finish line, so let's start with the takeoff.
This runway is marked with a start-finish line, and as a competitor parks their main gear on the line, they apply power and position their aircraft to get off the ground as soon as possible. Once their main gear leaves the ground, a line judge will mark their takeoff score using the measuring line along the side. This score will be added to the pilot's landing score on this heat. The landing is in two parts. It's either over the line and counted, or if the pilot's main gear touches down before the line, or even touches the line, this heat score is scratched and results on a landing disqualification, and the pilot will have to rely on another takeoff and landing score to get them on the podium. A quick look at our aircraft shows we have two types of landing gear: tricycle and tail draggers. On the tail dragger aircraft, the score is marked from the two main wheels toward the front of the airplane. And for tricycle landing gear, the score is marked by the two main gear in the rear of the aircraft. It's a fierce competition out here, but at the end of the day, it's all about building better and safer pilots in the skies. It's a great day for STOL competition. Let's get started.
So you might be asking yourself, what is the point of all of this? And, it's one thing to compete here on this beautiful turf runway that we've kind of carved out of Sulphur Springs Airport. We've got all our lines painted. We've got all our line judges assembling right now, getting ready to go. You can even see some airplanes practicing on the actual turf strip here at Sulphur Springs Airport off in the distance. Imagine you are flying in the backcountry. Maybe you're out in the western United States and you see a sandbar that you want to land on, so you can do a little bit of fly fishing. Or maybe you want to just hang out with your friends. You want to camp there, build a little fire, have some champagne. You can't fly for 8 hours after that. But anyway, you go land on a sandbar, right? Well, envision that our runway today, our practice runway today, is that sandbar, and the water runs right up to the line, the big line with the cones next to it. That's been painted. Imagine that's the beginning of the sandbar, and imagine that the end of the sandbar is all the way to our right, if you're here in Sulphur Springs, all the way where the end of those distance markers are. And that's your landing space, right? So if you land short of that line, we call that a scratch. If you land short of that line, but it's a sandbar, you're getting wet, right? So what we're doing today is we're practicing real applicable skills that bush pilots use in the backcountry for hunting, exploration. Maybe you're a wildlife photographer and you want to get the best shot ever. You take your airplane and you fly into the backcountry and you land on that sandbar or land on the side of that mountain. That's how you're going to do that, using these skills that we're showing off today. Now, the truth is we are operating way more aggressively in competition sometimes than you might in the backcountry, right? We've got aircraft you're going to see practicing today that are literally on the leading edge of innovation in general aviation and in experimental aviation. So it's going to be pretty intense. It's going to be really cool. We're going to walk you through it as we go. We are at Sulphur Springs Municipal Airport. That's Sulphur Springs, Texas. We've got a field elevation of 489 feet, nice and low, so no worries about density altitude like earlier in the season, maybe at Pinedale, Wyoming, up for Rocky Mountain STOL. Winds today very favorable-ish for STOL flight. And the reason I say it that way is we got winds currently at 350 at 10 knots. 10 knots is a nice kind of standard amount of wind for a small aircraft. The STOL pilots love having a little bit of wind on the nose of their aircraft, right? The more wind over the wing, the shorter the takeoff distances are going to be. And you've seen that this season when we've had really healthy amounts of wind. We've had some insane performance numbers put down. We had Dan Reynolds in his Chinook landing at Swamp STOL, less than his aircraft is long. By the time he was stopped, the tail wheel was still on the other side of that line. And then in Moses Lake, at the Moses Lake Air Show, we saw Jeff Daly's Warhorse, a huge, big, heavy airplane compared to like the Chinook that we just talked about, taking off in right around 15 feet. That's bonkers, right? So we want that wind over the wings. The more wind over the wings, the better. But if you look at that windsock out in the distance there, and you look at the flags of all our great sponsors that help make this possible, you're going to notice that the wind is not, today at least, not coming directly down the runway. There is what we call in aviation a crosswind, and that wind today is headed from the pilot's left. And so they've got it. They're not getting all of the benefit of that over the wings in terms of short takeoff distances. Now, there are a couple of things you can do. And actually, as I watch this right now, we can see that the windsock now looks more or less right down the runway. So as we're talking, conditions are still changing. But if you have a crosswind, you need to control the airplane differently to keep it going straight over the runway, and you're not going to get as much benefit from the wind as you would if it were a pure headwind. So that's something to keep an eye on today here in Texas and this weekend. Temperature right now pretty mild, 68 degrees Fahrenheit, 20 degrees centigrade. Density altitude, which is kind of another way to put that that heat plus field elevation together, is only 1,207 feet. Remember, at Pinedale, we were operating where the aircraft felt, ostensibly, basically the best way to describe that is the aircraft feels or performs like it's at that density altitude reading, and in Pinedale, it was over 9,000 feet. That was absolutely bonkers. You can see on the roof, here's another thing to talk about with National STOL there. On the roof of our broadcast trailer, you can see our air bosses there working to keep track of all of the air traffic. So they are all former air traffic controllers, ATC, and they're all communicating with both the traffic locally to let people know, hey, there's a bit of a cool thing happening in Sulphur Springs today. If they're coming in, you want to make sure you can be safe and integrate into the traffic. They're also keeping safe separation between all of our competitive aircraft. So they're here in charge of safety to make sure that everyone is separated, no one's getting too slow, and that everyone is safe on the ground as well. You can see there we've got what I'm assuming is a Legend Cub. Kind of fired up and ready to go. Definitely a Cub type. Taxiing up there. Maybe a Super Cub beyond it with some slats on the front. We'll get you all the specific details as we get ready to go. Look at this aircraft here sitting here. There's a couple, we can do a little bit of aviation vocabulary while we hold on this shot. This aircraft, like you learned in the video at the front of the show, is a tail dragger. That actually used to be what we would call a conventional aircraft, right? The little wheel is in the back. The big wheels are in the front. And there's varying thoughts on whether or not that's an advantage for a STOL pilot. It's pretty popular in STOL to have a tail dragger configuration because you can have fatter tires on the front to help you absorb those bumps. A couple other things to talk about. Look at the control surface at the back of the airplane on the far left. It's kind of angled up right now. That's called the elevator. You're going to hear me talk about that a lot today. That controls the pitch of the aircraft. When you pull back on the stick, the elevator goes up. Air goes over that and puts the nose of the airplane up like that, like so. It's like Keith Lang getting a little bit of practice in before practice. The other control surface on the back of that airplane is the rudder. You're going to see that working a lot too, particularly with the tailwheel aircraft, and that keeps the aircraft in control. We call it the yaw control. Imagine like pivoting right and left in your seat. That's what the rudder does, just like on a boat. And then you've got the wings. You can see the wings there as it taxis by. There's two control surfaces on the outer edges. Those are called the ailerons. They control the roll. So if you move the stick left or right, the airplane's going to roll left or right in space. And then some airplanes, like you can look at this airplane, race number 15 right now, on the inboard part of the wing, you see the ailerons are slightly moved right now for crosswind correction as we taxi. You're always flying the airplane, no matter what, if it's on the ground or in the air. But then on the inboard part of the wing, there's a control surface called flaps. And those flaps, not all airplanes have them, most do. Those flaps help us slow down. They give us more lift and more drag to give us a better descent rate as we land. Or if you just want to fly very slow, maybe you're observing something on the ground. And now up in front on the line, we're getting the first bits of our sport class competitors. Chuck Olmstead in a 2021 American Legend aircraft AL-18 getting off nice and short, taking advantage of that crossing. You can see he was cheating to the right side of the runway to get as much on the nose as possible. Brent Womack now in race number 15. That's a 2020 Rands S20 Raven from Denton, Texas. Waiting for the air bosses to give him the go-ahead. Full throttle. Getting that tail up and yanking it back. Notice that the wind got underneath that left wing a little bit, but that's okay. He got that figured out. Now, one to watch this weekend, particularly in the season standings. Check it out. Pat McIntyre. In the Rans S7. Yanking those flaps down, popping up into the sky. Pat McIntyre on the prowl this weekend, looking to hold his own. Here comes Matt Vastine in a Just Highlander 2023 model. Yanking back nice and hard off right around 100 feet. Nick Ardillo taxiing to the line now in that 2014 Carbon Cub SS from Dallas, Texas. A lot of Texas folks, maybe not surprisingly, come into play. And look at what Nick Ardillo just did for you. There's another reason why he is one to watch. Nick Ardillo, an airline pilot based in Dallas, Texas. He's got over 15,000 hours of flying time. So that's the first bit of practice kicking off here at Lonestar STOL practice. Some good takeoff numbers across the entire pack. Shortest actually was Nick Ardillo with 72 feet. 73 feet Brent Womack, 75 feet Pat McIntyre. That may be Levi Nogues as well. Levi is flying Pat's plane this weekend, so it could be him as well. We'll find out. Chuck Olmstead holding it off. Oh, looks like a scratch for Chuck. That right main gear touching down before the line. Our chief line judge, Lexi Duncan, giving it the blue flag, saying, nope, too short, no go. And it looks like the wind is just updated from the METAR service here. We've got winds 330 at 8. So maybe a little less on the nose, but honestly, everything's howling pretty good. Always like to have a little wind on the nose. Now, watch. This Rans S20, Brent Womack, holding it off, and a scratch for Brent Womack in race 15. Brent's a retired airline pilot. He's also a CFII, which means he's a certified flight instructor that also can teach you how to fly under instruments, and a multi-engine instructor as well. Now, let's watch to the left, nice and low over the grass. Working that power, and good over the line. Stick fullback heavy on the brakes. Sub 100 foot landing there for Pat McIntyre's aircraft, at least. Heading into this weekend, Pat McIntyre a full 48 points ahead of Joel Milloway, holding for first in the sport class. And look at this shot right now. We've got a lot of airplanes coming in. Oh, burst of throttle gets it over the line for the Highlander. So kind of cool to see we've got some aircraft on final approach for the grass. Also aircraft on final approach for the hard surface there. So that gave us that cool formation type flight. Look at this little slow flight fun happening. Here's Nick Ardillo. Burst of power, good over the line. Gave up maybe 25 feet. And if I'm not mistaken, that's James Barkheimer doing a little bit of a slow flight practice over the hard surface, touching down over there. And it's time for us to back taxi and get another run in the books for this bit of the sport competitors. Chuck Olmsted with the DQ last run, got that scratch. No big deal, it's just practice. Brent Womack also bringing in the scratch action. Pat McIntyre with 155. Matt Vastine with 185 combined. And Nick Ardillo bringing up third place, if this were competition right now, with a combined score of 256. Chuck Olmsted now in that American Legend aircraft. Version of the Super Cub. Getting ready to depart, and looks like some more competitors are coming in right now. We've got a champ rolling out onto the taxiway. Here's Chuck now, full throttle, a little bit of a tail bounce, well timed for Chuck Olmsted. Brent Womack built this aircraft 3 years ago. Rotax 912 powered. Big 27-inch Tundra tires on it. And the Rotax, for you engine nerds, has a big bore kit on it. Okay, here he goes. Dropping those flaps. Really trying to get into the air there for Brent Womack. See what the number was on that one. Here's Pat McIntyre. Onboard camera in that Rans S7, yanking it back. It's sticking on just a few feet, and she is in the air. Love seeing that view over the nose there in that aircraft. Here we go. Matt Vastine. This aircraft is powered by a Yamaha engine. Stick full forward. Grabbing that bite, and I would say if I was to armchair quarterback that one, that was a well-timed pull back on the stick. So basically what's happening, right, is we have the aircraft trying to get up to flying speed, and if it's ready to fly, when you yank back on the stick, it'll pop right into the air. If it's not ready to fly, you'll actually introduce more drag by putting that tail back down, as well as the shape of the airplane in the apparent wind. Here's Nick Ardillo. Plopping it up, big deck angle for a minute there. Again, trying to get every ounce of that crosswind. And as we continue this first heat of practice for the sport class, I want to remind everybody here in Sulphur Springs, go check out the merch booth for National STOL. And there's also a bunch of other great local vendors here in the area for you to come visit. You can check out our presenting sponsor, Legend Aircraft. And too short for Chuck Olmstead. He's going to give it a go around, but I think they're still going to call that a scratch. I heard the wheels chirp on the hard surface. So if you touch down, a go-around's always the best choice from a safety perspective if you need it, but definitely felt like he touched down there, heard the little chirps, the little chirp, chirp of the wheels. So Chuck Olmstead trying to get it dialed in. Brent Womack on final approach in the S20. Well done for Brent Womack, but Lexi says no go. Scratch touching down just before the line. So another scratch in the books for Brent Womack here in practice in Sulphur Springs, Texas. On board now with race number 40. Really cool to see the view. You can see how hard it is to see the line this far out. Low, stable approach over the grass for Pat McIntyre. Going to be adding maybe a little bit of power here. We'll see if he needs it or not. There we go. Little burst to get him back into the air. A little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. Oh, and a scratch for race 40 as well. You can really see how much patience it takes when you do that low approach style. Low over the ground, modulating that power. Looks like we're getting a heavier crosswind from the left for our competitors here in practice. Matt Vastine working that Yamaha. Very distinct engine note. Whoa, woof. Little burst of power, just enough to get him over the line, landing right on the other side of it. An 88-foot takeoff for Matt Vastine. We'll see what that landing number comes in at. Nick Ardillo, flaps drooping down. Ooh, and a scratch for Nick Ardillo as well. It's Scratch City here in practice today as we begin the sport class. Chuck Olmstead coming over the line, good over the line this time, giving up maybe about 50 feet before he touched down there. So this weekend, if you're into STOL, it is going to be one heck of a weekend. We have a lot to cover with you right now. Today, again, practice. Tomorrow, practice in the morning. Lonestar STOL in the afternoon. Boom. Gives out some awards, give out some season points. Head right into Saturday where we do the national championships. And I'm really excited because those national championships, the trophies are going to be very special this year. They're built by Red Tag Art, one of our new sponsors this season. Red Tag Art features innovative and handcrafted art and home goods from Red Tag aircraft parts, which are no longer viable for use. Each new design starts with Red Tag aircraft parts and seeing what that part is, not for what it is, but for what it could be. So we've seen bottle openers made from valve covers, turbine coffee tables, everything in between. Check them out, redtagart.com. There goes Brent Womack in the S20. Pat McIntyre pulling up to the line. Just notice that Chuck Olmstead's aircraft is named Beer Money. Okay, here goes the Ranza 7. A little bit longer that time. Best takeoff of practice for Pat McIntyre was 75 feet. Let's see what this takeoff was. Matt Vastine getting ready to go, revving that Yamaha. 90-foot takeoff for Pat McIntyre. Matt Vastine on the roll. Off right around 100 feet for Matt Vastine. Here comes Nick Ardillo. Ooh, Matt Vastine with a 52-foot takeoff here in practice. Nick Ardillo's best takeoff, 72 feet. Let's see what he can get done. Grabbing that flap handle, yanking it down. Letting that crosswind get under him a little bit there, but getting the bank angle figured out, no problem. Chuck Olmstead looking for redemption here in practice. Last takeoff was a 98-foot takeoff combined with a scratch. He's got 2 scratches so far here in practice. Giving it the beans, as it were, and he's off right around 175 feet. And you can check out the beautiful Texas countryside. What's up, Katrina, in the National STOL chat? Hey, Av Geeks and STOL Freaks. Katrina, that's my line. You can go and chat with me on social right now. Go to nationalstol.com and then click the links to the broadcast. You can go to Facebook or YouTube, watch it live, and we'll catch up in the chat. Here is Brent Womack. Woo! Right on the edge of it. Good one, though. Now he's going to get it stopped. Keep that tail down. No problem. Maybe could have stopped a little more precisely so the judges knew where to mark it. It could have paused, put a bigger pause in that stop. But stopped all the same for Brent Womack. Next up, Pat McIntyre on short low final, hovering over that grass. Adding a little bit of power. Nice. Nicely done. Lexi says, not sure. It's going to have to go to replay to see if it was a scratch or not. See what race control says about that. Right now coming down with a 91-foot takeoff, or excuse me, a 90-foot takeoff and a 91-foot landing for Pat McIntyre. He's still the shortest of practice so far with 155 feet combined from his first practice run. Here's Matt Vastine revving that Yamaha back up. Ooh, it's loud and it's angry. Getting it stopped again, and not really a stop. Not really a stop for Matt Vastine on that one. I don't know if we can call that one. He just tapped it, gave it a little. It's like what do they call that in law enforcement? A rolling stop. He rolled right through that stop sign. Matt Vastine. That would have been if they gave it to him in competition. That would have been his shortest, 132 feet combined. Here's Nick Ardillo. Good over the line for Nick Ardillo as well. Here we go in replay, watching Nick Ardillo again. Coming down over that line, very good over the line. Gave only up like maybe half of a plane length in distance. Chuck Olmsted coming in hot. Touching down around the 75 to 100 foot mark. And it's time for the next bit of competitors to head into practice. And we're going to take a quick break, another word from our sponsors, and we'll be back with more STOL practice here in Sulphur Springs, Texas. And we are back here in Sulphur Springs, Texas. We're conducting open practice for Lonestar STOL, part of the National STOL Series, and it is the last event of the season, and we are gearing up for what's going to be an amazing weekend. We just saw the first heat of Sport Class compete. Now we're up for the second heat. Right now, we've got Tony Sanchez hanging out in his aircraft, getting ready to go. We'll see who else is going to practice this run. So go to nationalstol.com and learn all about how National STOL works. It's basically your local spot landing competition turned up to 11. And we've been having a lot of fun touring the entire country all season. Everywhere from here in Sulphur Springs, Texas, to Hartford, Wisconsin, to Pinedale, Wyoming, to the Military Aviation Museum in Virginia, to Nashville just a few weeks ago. Moses Lake for their air show not too long ago. Actually, that probably was quite a bit long ago. It just feels the year has gone by fast. If you want to be part of the family, we'd love to welcome you into it, both either as a pilot, you can come participate in the rookie class and have some of the more experienced pilots put you under their wing. No pun intended. Or you can volunteer. We've got a lot of volunteers that come out, make this possible. Takes an absolute village, an absolute army to put this sort of thing together, and we're so grateful for all the volunteers. And you can volunteer too. Just go to nationalstol.com. And while we gear up and get ready to go, check who is in the pits right now. We got Brennan, our sideline reporter, with Pat McIntyre. So, thanks so much to Pat and Brennan hanging out in the pits right now. Thanks for joining us. If you're joining us at home right now for a very special Halloween practice here in National STOL as we gear up for another bit of sport class practice. Tony Sanchez rolling to the line in his 2014 Just Aircraft Super STOL. He's from Montgomery, Texas. He's got over 40 years in the airline industry. He's been a lifelong general aviation enthusiast and only started flying tail draggers little under 4 years ago. Full throttle for Tony. Look at those big old flaps on his airplane, giving him a little extra lift as he takes off. Brandon Rice. The 2009 Rans S7 says here, who are your sponsors? And Brandon says, my beautiful bride. He's been flying for 2 years. See what I mean about getting involved? You can get involved flying for 2 years. He's already flying a Rans S7 in competition. Getting that nose nice and low. Pulling back well-timed for Brandon Rice. Off sub 100 feet. Here comes Lee Boyd. From Appleton, Tennessee, originally was a Texas boy from Houston, now lives near Chattanooga. Started competing in Swamp STOL earlier this year, and check out the paint on that aircraft. It's one of the most beautifully painted aircraft you will see. 31-inch Alaskan Bush tires, big old Kato prop on the front, Acme Aero shocks. It's all working for him. Getting that tail up and grabbing it nice off. Cleanly for Lee Boyd. It's time for the other Sanchez to give it a go. Eddie Sanchez in Devil Girl. It's a 2023 Just Aircraft Highlander. He's from Willis, Texas. He's a Boeing 777 captain. Lives in a hangar home. Shares his life with his crew chief and partner, Sherry. Here he is now. Look at that giant prop he's swinging. Pulled a little early, not ready to get into the sky yet for Eddie Sanchez. Hung onto the ground a little bit longer. That airplane also powered by the Yamaha 998T. It's a Sidewinder turbo making 270 horsepower. 270 horsepower for an airplane that only weighs 1,320 pounds. That's pretty crazy. Tony Sanchez now on final approach. Getting behind the power curve there, letting that nose get up. He's going to use the throttle. Hold it off, Tony. Really giving it the beans, and scratch is what Lexi said. I was about to say good over the line. Held it off. She says no go. It's a scratch. Let's go back to the replay. Frame by frame, and she absolutely called it correctly. Touchdown maybe an inch or two before the line. Lexi Duncan, eagle eye. Not going to let anything get past her. Brandon Rice. In the S7, all the way here from Kansas. Here comes Brandon Rice. Good over the line, only gave up about 15 feet. checking the scores right now as Lee Boyd just short and with a scratch as well. Waiting in the wings, no pun intended, as we get ready for a few more competitors to come in. While they do that, we want to thank one of our sponsors, eProps. eProps are the lightest propellers in the world. They're ultra strong, high performance propellers made in France since 2008. They make props for paramotors and props for aircraft. They're carbon titanium propellers. Not enough power. Even all 270 ponies could not keep Eddie Sanchez in the air. We heard him revving that Yamaha up, but it was not enough, so a scratch for him as well. Lots of scratches today in practice. I think that crosswind, that wind from the left, right? The pilots are having to put the aileron down into the wind and then correct with rudder to keep the aircraft going straight. And I think all of that combined, just a little bit less lift for the wing, and it's just keeping people a little bit on their toes as they get ready for tomorrow. Tony Sanchez, good, into the sky. Here's Brandon Rice. Horsepower Rotax 912. And well done for Brandon Rice. You saw him pull back on the stick, dropping that tail, bouncing off the ground, kind of levering the aircraft into the air. We've had STOL pilots talk about how they think that if you do that, there is actually some physical propulsion of the aircraft into the air. Here's Lee Boyd now, full throttle, getting that prop nice and close to the grass and off really nicely, right around 75 feet. Here comes Eddie Sanchez, taxiing to the line. Rick Boardman playing off on the other runway, off in the distance here. Eddie Sanchez now. Full throttle for Eddie. Giving it the beans and, oh, just pulled a little too early again. Could have got off a little bit shorter, I think. Well, they go around in the pattern. Let's send it back to Brennan, who's with Keith Lang in the pits.
And it seems to be laying out pretty flat, so that's what we're looking for.
All right. Well, thanks, Keith. Back to you, Ryan.
Thank you so much, Brennan and Keith, for taking the time in the pits. We're going to see Keith put on one heck of a clinic this weekend. Tony giving it all the power. Look how high that nose is, and he held it off. Now, this is a great example, folks. You might be watching, you might be wondering, can the tail wheel touch before the line? And the answer is in the tail wheel aircraft, yes. The tail wheel can touch before the line. We're only measuring from the main wheels, the ones in the front. Now, when we see more what now feel traditional, the nose gear aircraft, the tri-gear aircraft, I guess technically you could put down the nose wheel first, but that would be a harrowing experience for the pilots. It's not something they're aiming to do. So maybe a slight advantage to the tail draggers there. Here's Brandon Rice with a scratch. Eagle Eye Lexi Duncan saying, no go, brother. Landing a little bit short. Say hi to a few other folks in the chat. I want to say hi to Foxfly Studio. Katrina Anov is here. Brad Sweet. And too short for Lee Boyd. Kind of a healthy scratch for him. Hi to Angela Douglas, one of our hosts at Pinedale for the Rocky Mountain Stole. She says, we're on our way. And even more, come say hi yourself. Go to nationalstol.com. If you're here in Sulphur Springs, you can watch the broadcast on your phone and chat with us. And if you want to get involved in National Stol, go to nationalstol.com and click live chat. If you click live chat, that's going to take you to our Discord server. You can learn more about what National Stol is, as well as get involved, volunteer. Here's Eddie Sanchez, really well over the line, only gave up about 10 feet and stopped nice and firmly. Just over 75 feet. Eddie Sanchez with a 92-foot takeoff that second run and an 82-foot landing. That gives him a combined score of 174 feet. Tony Sanchez coming in a bit shorter than his brother. 154 feet combined, so a 89-foot takeoff and a 65-foot landing. That'll be fun to hear about in the campfire tonight. Here's Brandon Rice behind him. Lee Boyd behind him, getting ready for their last run of practice today. Tony working in those flaps nice and gently off. Looks like sub 100, give or take. Brandon Rice in the S7. That is a clean-looking S7. Every time I see him, I say, if you're ever selling it, let me know, because that one, she is an absolute beauty. Getting that tail nice and high, yanking it back, off right around the 75-foot mark for Brandon Rice. Lee Boyd taxiing up in the Carbon Cub. Tony Sanchez's takeoff 88 feet. Brandon Rice's takeoff 73 feet that time around. Here goes Lee Boyd. And a really short one for Lee Boyd as well, sub 75 feet. Eddie Sanchez, Yamaha just growling, waiting to get into practice. Here he goes, winding that Yamaha up, grabbing all the crosswind he can. And it's still, I mean, I am not a 777 captain, and I'm certainly not a professional STOL pilot, but it still feels like Eddie is pulling just a little bit early. He's got a lot of horsepower, which can overcome that a little bit, but pulling just a little bit early, I think like a fraction of a second later could actually shave some of the footage off of his scores. 81-foot takeoff for Eddie Sanchez that time. Tony coming around the bend. Final approach. Here comes Tony now. Man, he is not afraid to get that into high alpha. Just plopping it down. That one was a good one. You know it's good when Lexi gives it a cheer from the crowd as well. That was an excellent one. Watch out for Tony this weekend. He could upset the apple cart for a lot of the competitors. While they get ready for the next landing, here we go with the aerial footage there. Brandon Rice kind of hovering in the S7. We want to make sure that we thank some of our local sponsors, and we got to thank them a lot this weekend. Legend Aircraft presenting this for you. We're at their base of operations where they build all these aircraft. Thank you so much to them. Here's the S7 now. Good over the line, only a few feet beyond it. And people are just dialed in today, right around that 80-foot mark. 85, like 75 to 80 feet. We've only had a few shorter landings. Tony Sanchez, 59-foot landing. Lee Boyd's been in the 75 area. $65-foot. Yeah, Tony Sanchez's landings are ones to be reckoned with today. Lee Boyd, good over the line. Oh, Lexi says she's not sure, maybe too close to call. Let's watch the replay now. Oh, not so good over the line. We definitely touched down maybe right on the line, and knew this season you cannot touch the line at all. Saw the dust getting kind of kicked up there, so a scratch for Lee Boyd. And I can just hear, you can hear Eddie before you see him. Well done. Oh, another one that's too close to call. Big explosion of mud and dirt as he touched down there. Based on where the mud hit, I would call it good. We'll see what race control says. So they're calling that one a scratch. So it must have been by a blade of grass or two. Anyway, big thank you again to our presenting sponsor, Legend Aircraft, hosting us this weekend. They have brought in an absolute cavalcade of sponsors to bring Lonestar STOL and the national championships to you. Let's go now to Brennan, who's in the pits with, if I'm not mistaken, it's Tony Sanchez.
All right, thanks, Ryan. We're here with Tony. He had a really awesome high angle of attack coming in on that last pass. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's just the kind of the characteristics of the Super STOL. The Super STOL is because it flies so slow, and we have so much elevator on it, you can really get it pitched up really nice with these floating slats that we have. So it makes a huge difference on versus a Highlander versus the Super STOL. So if you'll notice when Eddie comes in his Highlander, his angle of attack's a little bit different, but we can still drag our tails. I can do mine a little bit easier than he can do his, but he's got the power to get out of it. But that's just a characteristic of the Super STOL.
Awesome. Looking really good out there. So back to you, Ryan.
All right.
All right. Thanks so much, Tony. Thank you so much, Brennan, in the pits. Love that we've got that crew out there feeding you all the behind-the-scenes information about how everything is working out there. Let's give a little read of our other local sponsors right now while we get ready for the next chunk of practice. We've got Nottingham's Dodge, City National Bank, Clemens Insurance, J. Hodge Chevy, Texas Heritage Bank, Etos Metal Roof and Wall Systems, Powerlift Doors, First National Bank, Thrust Flight, Grocery Supply Company, and Chad's Media. Time for more sport class now. Actually, looks like we've got some rookies coming out. Check it out, Glenn Roberts in the champ. He arrived just only a few minutes ago, coming in from Bellevue, Nebraska. This is someone who's been serving in the U.S. Air Force for 21 years as an electronic warfare officer and earned his pilot's license in February of 2023. Volunteers for National STOL as one of our drone pilots. He's flying a 1946 Aranca Champ. 90 whopping horsepower, swinging what looks to me like a wooden prop. He's getting that tail up, and she is off. So with a Champ, with a 90 horsepower aircraft like that, it's just going to take a lot longer to get the aircraft in the air. That's still an impressively short takeoff for something with that power to weight ratio. Next up, in a 114 horsepower Rotax 912 engined Rans S7, it's Scott Elmore from Lafayette, Colorado. He's getting off right around 125. So that is the Champ and the Rans S7. Also hoping to see this weekend Russ Keith flying a 2007 Chinook Plus 2 in the rookie class. Check out the wind right now. We've got less wind on the nose. That windsock flying a little less proudly, but we're still seeing a crosswind from the left. That's going to be consistent all day today. So watch that wind. That's something to keep an eye on, especially with the rookies. I'm a pilot myself, and it's the crosswind days. They're always days that I'm a little more nervous. But that's just what it is. So we've got the rookies doing their thing. Flopping around in the traffic pattern. Glenn Roberts now giving up about 50 feet, keeping that wing down, keeping that tail down. There we go. And now he's going to get on those brakes. Well stopped for Glenn Roberts. Waiting on Scott Elmore to come around. In the 2002 Rans S7S. Flew here all the way from Lafayette, Colorado. We'll see what he can do. Here he comes now, giving it some throttle. That tail down nice and low. Oh, keep that tail down. And we've got a bit of a problem. So Scott Elmore now experiencing a prop strike. Too heavy on the brakes there. Everyone's going to check on him, make sure he's okay. Pretty low impact type deal. Line just coming to get the aircraft back on its tail. So we saw just too much braking action there, too heavy on the brakes and not enough aerodynamic forces on the tail. As you learn to fly STOL, that is one of the things that becomes a cherished skill, learning that balance. Good on the landing here on the replay. Let's watch. And that tail starts to come up, and right about here, it's beyond the point of no return. Up on the nose, heartbreak for Scott Elmore from Colorado on practice today, as he's got to work out fixing that propeller and usually the engine now. So getting him walked back. He's looking a little bummed out right now in the cockpit as he's getting pushed back to the pits there, as our line judges inspect the runway, looking for FOD, making sure there's no bits of that propeller in the dirt anywhere there that could damage another competitor's aircraft. So we're under a yellow flag here at Sulphur Springs, Texas. And I think one of the important things to mention about National STOL is it's a pretty low-risk sport in terms of aviation sport. There's not a lot of moments where pilots can get in a lot of trouble compared to aerobatics or things like that are high risk. But if we do have any sort of incidents, usually a mechanical incident like that where we have a low-speed impact with a prop striking the ground. While we get things dressed up and ready to go for more practice, let's go to Brennan, who's in the pits with Brandon Korn while we're under yellow flag.
Thanks, Ryan. We're here with Brandon. Brandon, what are you going to be practicing out there today?
Today we're going to get settled in with this wind and the altitude here, and just get the airplane behind the power curve where it'll drag up to the line nice and slow, trying to get it stable and just really hit your marks with your line, get some consistency.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Brandon. Back to you, Ryan.
Great to hear what Brandon's going to be working on. He is, of course, one to watch in the season standings in the touring class. There's Glenn Roberts now, the other rookie in the champ, getting his work in. Saw his first appearance on the circuit in Nashville just a few weeks ago, putting down some great landings. You can tell that it was a bucket list item for him to compete. Brandon Korn in second place in touring class. He's the defending national champion from last year. John McCardle up in front of him just by 9 points. So it's really anyone's battle in the touring class. John McCardle with 112 season points. Brandon Korn with 103. Luke Strandland behind him with 78. Luke Strandland with the sneaky surprise in Nashville with the reversible pitch propeller that he recently had installed. By the way, if you're here in Sulphur Springs, we have room on the 4 p.m. Legend Aircraft Factory Tour. If you'd like to attend that, you got to meet at the hangar called the Doghouse. And if you're here in Sulphur Springs, you probably know which one that is. We got to meet at the Doghouse at 3:55 for the 4 p.m. Legend Aircraft Factory Tour. You know, I kind of wish I could go on that tour. That sounds amazing. They're building a lot of amazing aircraft there. You're going to see Brian Steck fly in his highly customized Legend Aircraft MOAC, the mother of all Cubs. That aircraft built right here in Sulphur Springs, Texas. There's also a very famous YouTuber, Mr. Trent Palmer, is building a Legend Aircraft Cub as well right now. So that's one to watch. Watch his development on his YouTube page as he works with Legend Aircraft to build that aircraft. It's going to be really great. Okay, we've got Glenn Roberts now with the scratch, touching down just a little bit too soon on that hard service chunk, that taxiway That's just before our competitive runway. And if he's watching right now, he's saying, you know what? Well, let's be real. The Champ probably not enough braking power to get up on its nose. But he's watching what happened to Scott Elmore. And that's got to shake you up a little bit as a fellow rookie, seeing a first-time competitor go on the nose like that. Let's take a look at the scores right now here in the rookie class. Scott Elmore had a 130-foot takeoff, really respectable before that nose over. Glenn Roberts really tightening it up on the takeoffs. 550 feet down now to 350 feet. Let's see what he can do on his third run here in practice. In the mighty Champ. Pushing that nose down, getting that tail up with the elevator. Pulling back, and that right main came off, but the left main stuck on for a while. I don't know if that will be better than 350 feet or not. As he makes his way around the pattern, want to give a big shout out to some of our sponsors. In this rookie class, safety is so important. You saw it there. We had Scott Elmore with that nose over. You'll notice that he was wearing a helmet, and that's something that we've really expanded this season with an emphasis on safety. From everything from the things you can see, like helmets required for all competitors, to improve distance lines for the judges, being further away from the center line of the runway. We're working really hard to make sure everything is as safe as possible. And part of that is flighthelmet.com. Flighthelmet.com specializes in the sales and service of flight helmets, flight helmet comms equipment, flight clothing, and safety and survival equipment. They're a full-service independent helmet company that services all makes and models of helmets. Use coupon code NSTOL50, NSTOL50 to save $50 off. Go to flighthelmet.com to get your helmet restored or to get a brand new one. You also want to talk about our friends at Ladd Gardner Insurance. They've been a partner with National STOL since the beginning, back here in Texas, back in the day on a rainy day when this all started years ago. Ladd Gardner Insurance is aviation protected. They've got excellent customer service and coverage. Here's Glenn Roberts now. Good over the line. Gave up only about 50 feet or so. Keeping that tail down and stopped nice and short for Glenn Roberts. He is going to be happy with that one as the rookie class ends here in practice for Lonestar STOL. Watching that replay now. Good over the line. And race control in my ears saying that may have been Glenn's shortest ever combined run between Nashville and here. He had a 450-foot takeoff. We'll see what the official score came in at for the landing. 267 for Glenn Roberts. It's a combined score of 717 and a 90-horsepower aircraft. Welcome, if you're just joining us, to National STOL. We're here in Sulphur Springs, Texas for Lonestar STOL. Happy Halloween. Just trying to celebrate that all the time. I'm just going to put this on. I think it's time for this. Just to celebrate a little bit with all of you at home. If you're a Halloween person, I don't even know what this costume would be. It doesn't fit great over my glasses, but we'll just keep trying. We'll be back with more STOL action right after this. A Special thanks to all our sponsors: Ladd Gardner Insurance, Aviation Protected, Legend Aircraft, not your grandfather's Cub. Get the right trailer for your job with usatrailersdirect.com. Sarasota Avionics, your authorized garment dealer. FlightHelmet.com, specializing in sales and service of flight helmets. Use code NSTOL50 for $50 off. Flying Eyes Optics, the lightest and most comfortable aviation sunglasses around. Lift Aviation, bridging the gap and making products that are stronger and lighter that you can trust. Aero LEDs, serving every spectrum of the worldwide aviation market. Red Tag Art, innovative and handcrafted aviation art and home goods. Legendary Aviation Coffee Company, where aviation passion flirts shamelessly with the seduction of coffee roasting. I Fly EFB. Fly your freedom. It's different up here. Tundra Tailwheels. Upgrade your aircraft today at tundratailwheel.com. And we are setting the stage for battle here for Lonestar STOL this weekend. Thank you so much for joining us. Happy Halloween. My name is Ryan Dombrowski, and we're so happy you're here with us at Lonestar STOL here in Sulphur Springs, Texas, home of Legend Aircraft and the mother of all Cubs. We just had a very eventful rookie class practice session, and we also completed 2 runs of sport class. So waiting for all the competitors to still make it in. We had a big weather system come through the area last night, and we had some instrument conditions kind of hovering over the field this weekend. And we've got everyone in now, or they're in the process of getting in. And it's just been an absolutely beautiful day. It didn't start that way, but it's been an absolutely beautiful day thus far here in practice for Lonestar STOL. Now, if you've been watching us all season, you've watched us travel all over the country, this weekend is where it all wraps up. It's very exciting. We're going to do Lonestar STOL tomorrow. Get one little batch of season points in for all our competitors. The top competitors in each class then will be selected to compete for everything national championship style on Saturday. So you've got 2 days of competition instead of just one. We are stoling it up to the max here in Sulphur Springs. While we get ready to go for the next bit of practice, I want to thank our sponsor, USA Trailers Direct. That's usatrailersdirect.com. This trailer that I'm sitting in right now travels not only to every in real life event, IRL, as the kids say, but also actually went to Flight Sim Expo. And that's a great segue into telling you a little bit more about how we are trying to get even more people involved in aviation at National STOL, and we're trying to get more people involved in STOL, and that is eSTOL. We actually have a number of volunteers here who got into IRL STOL by competing in eSTOL. And what is eSTOL, Ryan? Spit it out. Well, eSTOL stands for Electronic STOL, and we compete in Microsoft Flight Simulator. So you can download Microsoft Flight Simulator on your Xbox or on your PC. You can download all the actual places we compete. I just downloaded the scenery pack for Hartford, Wisconsin. Sodbuster's there, and it's exactly like it's been all mapped using drones, so it's like picture perfect, exactly what it looks like in real life. And then you can compete against people from all over the globe. And this trailer, provided by USATrailersDirect.com, went to Flight Sim Expo in Vegas, and they actually had a special e-STOL competition on the floor of the expo this year. Big thanks to USATrailersDirect.com for providing this. Keeps me comfortable, so I'm a little biased. They're one of my favorite sponsors. But it also keeps our entire broadcast team on the other side of the wall from me sheltered, powered, comfortable, bringing this entire live broadcast to you. It's time to gear up now for the touring class. Check out who's on the line right now. Luke Strandland in the 2009 Murphy Super Rebel. This airplane had a big surprise for us in Nashville with a reversible pitch propeller. We've seen that before in competition. It's not the silver bullet that you would expect. There's a high workload in the cockpit, high mechanical workload happening on the front end of the airplane, and pilots need to make sure to do everything exactly right to engage it. Otherwise, it just sends them further and further down the runway. So that's Luke Strandland in that Super Rebel. It looks like behind him is actually Keith Lang from the Adventure class, who is going to be competing in Unlimited class this weekend at Lonestar STOL. Keith Lang flying a 1956 Piper Super Cub. Lone Wolf STOL all the way from Wasilla, Alaska. So watch him. He's one to watch. What he can do in that aircraft, that vintage 1956 Super Cub, is nothing short of amazing. So they'll be the first two in this next run of practice. Waiting to get out there. Check out the windsock now. Look what it's done. It's definitely pointing a little bit more down the runway. And also check out what's on camera right now. We've never had one of these before, but if you know about bush flying and backcountry flying, you know what that is. That is a beaver. And I think people are usually used to seeing them on floats, but check it out on those fat bush tires. They don't actually look that big on that giant airplane. I can't wait to see that compete. That is flown by Chip Ferguson of Galveston, Texas. It's a 1954 de Havilland DHC-2. That's going to be really fun to watch fly. Looks like we've got some other competitors showing up now, getting ready to practice with us. Want to give a shout out to some of our sponsors who are offering prize considerations this year. Lift Aviation, Aero LEDs, Sarasota Avionics, iFly EFB, and Legendary Aviation Coffee Company. These are all companies that provide prizes for all of the pilots. And while we hang out here waiting for things to get started with the green, look at the windsock again. Just totally dead now, but a headwind. So all that steady wind that was kind of coming, maybe exiting the area with that weather system that went through this morning now, starting to diminish. And that's a bummer for the STOL pilots. They always want a little more wind on the nose. Let's talk about our friends at Flying Eyes. Flying Eyes are great glasses, and you can actually see them on my face right now. We'll do that in a second. Listen to how loud Luke Strandland's plane is. It is deafening. It is a beast. It is huge. It is off in just over 225 feet. Here comes Keith Lang. Not going to be competing against Luke in competition this week, and he's going to be in that unlimited class, that no holds barred class in the Super Cub. Keith owns and manages a wildlife control business. He's flown over 27 different aircraft And look at that, just poetry in motion, very smooth, very mindful, very demure on the controls. Here comes John McCardle in the touring class. In that mall, he is currently your points leader in the touring class by just a handful of points. John McCardle in the 1978 Mall M5 from Omaha, Nebraska. He's going to power that baby up. Here he goes. He's going to maul the air. Turbo normalized. Getting that tail up. Look at him just cutting the grass a little bit. Off really short in a really big plane. Now, if you are aircraft shopping, the next aircraft in front of you, race number 30, it's Brandon Korn, the defending champion from last year, 1963 Cessna 205 from Gauss, Texas. If you want one of the baddest, coolest Cessna 205s around, this one I just heard this morning around the breakfast table is for sale. Oh, it is so loud. It's so loud, Brandon. Here we go. He's going to get off, and look how much shorter he got off. Oh, a little bit of settling back once, but still off nice and short for Brandon Korn. And the coolest thing, I'm going to get my phone out because I've never seen one of these in National STOL competition before. Check out Chip Ferguson in the 1954 de Havilland Beaver. That radial engine giving it the go, spooling it up. That is just an absolute beast of an airplane. It's Beaver time. Here we go. Oh, that is so cool to see. You don't see that almost ever. I feel like every time I've ever seen a Beaver, it's been on floats. I even saw an electric Beaver at Oshkosh this year, fully electric on floats doing air operations. Okay, we got a second here. We got to talk about flying eyes. And I want you to look at my eyes right now and look at how well the flying eyes fit over my grotesque face. It's just so very smooth. It's very comfortable between the headset and all the damage that's been done to my face. You can use coupon code, let me look it up here for you. I think it's just National STOL. Go to flyingeyes.com and use coupon code National STOL to get 10% off your own pair. Mine are prescription. They actually have magnetic sunglasses that can attach to them as well, which I will not get right now because, as you can see, my face is very painful this Halloween day. So go to flyingeyes.com, get yourself a pair of Flying Eyes. And let's see what's going on in the traffic pattern now here in Sulphur Springs, Texas. Luke Strandlin. Now, this is a unique approach that he does. Very high up, very slow, very high alpha, using all that power he has to help settle that giant aircraft down to the runway. We'll see if we get a little taste of reverse pitch. Here he comes in now. Short final. Luke Strandlin. He's going to be too short. But you heard the propeller engage there and slow him down.
Having fun today, are you?
I am having a little fun today. If you're, there we go. That's a little sweaty. It's a little sweaty to wear that one. Folks, I am joined right now with Russ Keith of Airplanes and Coffee, who is noticing that we're having a fun Halloween practice today.
There you go.
So talk to me a little bit about what we're seeing. There's Keith Lang now with a scratch in practice. What have you observed so far as everyone's getting dialed into Sulphur Springs this weekend?
Well, I've got to be honest. I haven't been up here looking because should have been out here practicing right now, but my airplane broke down.
I wondered why I didn't see you out there. Your airplane broke down.
The airplane broke down, so I'm looking for a part. I'm hoping that we can find one with all my friends out there in Airplanes and Coffee, and we can get it picked up in time to get it fixed to fly tomorrow. But if we do, we do. If we don't, that'd be okay too. I think I'll still have a good time.
Should we put a call out? There's John McCardle, by the way, coming in the mall, getting it all stopped. What he can do in that airplane is truly incredible. Obviously, he's got a bit of a weight advantage against Brandon Korn, who'll be coming in just a second. What part are you looking for?
It's the carburetor mount.
Just need a carburetor mount for what?
912 Rotax.
Okay, if anyone's got a carburetor mount for a 912 Rotax, hop in the chat, let us know. Get it to Sulphur Springs this weekend.
Yeah, it's a little rubber mount that goes between the intake manifold and the carburetor.
Okay, just need that little thing.
It's, about that big around.
About that big around, which is about 4 inches around. A couple folks
Maybe
in
3.
the chat. I want to say hi to Lori Lopez saying, good luck, Brandon. And I think we've got Brandon. Yep, Brandon's
coming in on final now. In that beautiful 206. 205.
Which I don't know if you heard for sale.
I did hear that. Yes.
So if you're looking, you could shop. You could maybe you could just take it off his hands. Here he comes in. A lot of speed for Brandon. Good over the line, kicking up that dirt.
Nice stop.
Yeah, got it stopped real
right about
short.
160. About 160 feet for that big airplane. That is just amazing.
No, you think about the size of that. I mean, you can carry well over 1,000 pounds of cargo in that aircraft. Let's see what some of the scores are coming in as. Yeah, Brandon Korn with 382 combined. John McCardle looking for blood with 300 feet combined.
Wow.
Got a little bit of repositioning of aircraft right now, and if I'm not mistaken, that is the Beaver. Look how big that aircraft is as it comes in, that big radial engine.
They were such cool airplanes. All right. And our vantage point, it's hard to see him on short final. There he is.
Good over the line in the Beaver.
Down around that
I want to put that in perspective for people. So
240 range.
Brandon Korn typically has the biggest, heaviest airplane in competition. He's got a gross weight of 3,300 pounds, empty weight of 1,871. Luke Strandland's aircraft has less carrying capacity, but is actually heavier empty at around 2,000 pounds. This Beaver, flown by Chip Ferguson, he's from Galveston, Texas, has an empty weight of 3,200 pounds. So it is empty, heavier than any of those other aircraft would be completely and filled up loaded. It has a gross weight
of 5,100 pounds.
5,100
That's
pounds.
insane. And out here just getting it done.
So, other news in your world, in addition to the airplanes and coffee stuff, you've got a new job.
I do. I took over the
Luke didn't want to hear about
He
it.
did not. He made some noise, didn't he? I took over the executive director position at Operation Airdrop. Currently, we're still working up in the western North Carolina, up in the Appalachian Mountains. We're working with an organization called Operation Hilo, which is, Friends of STOL, as in the Acme Aero folks.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, they're part of this community
yeah,
for sure.
absolutely. And
speaking of Acme Aero, look at the fuselage of Keith Lang as he takes off there sub 100 feet.
Right. And Matt and Eric are running that organization, and we've been buying trailers, and they've been basically setting them up with everything that somebody would need, and we take them up in the mountains and we give them to people that have lost absolutely everything.
So talk a little more about that big response between your organization and their organization just a few weeks ago.
So what happened right after the clouds cleared out, he's going to make some noise here. Watch this take off. He's kind of cheating in the wind a little bit.
Whew.
Mowed a little bit of grass, and nice takeoff. But right after the clouds cleared, when we deployed, we set up in Concord, which is right there in Charlotte. And when it was all said and done, we had about 200 airplanes, 200 fixed wings flying in and out there carrying nice takeoff for Brandon, sub 175. Looked like more like about 153 or 4.
Well, and I just want to interject that Brandon's plane, Luke's plane, Chip's plane here, the Beaver, would be great for Operation Airdrop, where you could like load them up.
Oh, absolutely.
Like a ton of cargo in them. That's what they're for.
Especially the Beaver. I mean, well, either one of them. I flew missions back and forth with my Cessna 172, and it doesn't hold a lot of. Actually, my issue wasn't weight; it was space. Pulled a little early, cost him quite a bit of room.
You had to go for that second pull.
Yeah.
Okay, it's quieted down a little bit now. Talk to me about those days after the hurricane, that response.
So we had about 200 airplanes flying out of Concord, fixed wing airplanes, and the way it worked is that pilots came in, they checked in, and they told us how much useful load they had, minus their fuel and their persons. And so everything was weighed out, set on pallets, rolled out to the airplanes. It was loaded up into the planes, and they took off and flew out to the mountain airports that were, accessible. Sure. We had another operation happening at Statesville, and there was pretty close to 200 airplanes in and out of there as well.
Wow.
And then at Hickory is where the helicopters came in. When we got up there, we realized that the mission is not all that great for.
Speaking of a man on a mission,
and I'm telling you,
Luke Strandlin looking to make some noise.
He's got that beta down, doesn't he?
He's got it dialed in.
That was a very nice landing for him. So there were so many places that were just absolutely cut off and couldn't even get to an airport to get the supplies that we were flying in, so we needed helicopters. And so Doug Jackson reached out to Matt at Swain and said, hey, you think you can get us some helicopters that'll help? Well, next thing you know, we've got 80 helicopters flying in and out of Hickory.
Wow.
And they all total, we probably delivered another very nice landing.
Yeah, a little short for Keith Lang on that one, but very graceful. He's definitely like I don't know if he would appreciate this analogy. He's a ballet dancer on the stick. It's always very specific about how he's controlling that airplane.
Yeah, he's taxiing down with the tail held high there. He definitely has control of that airplane. So we got a call coming in for.
So Russ is going to take a phone call maybe about the part that he's looking for so he can compete. Here's John McCardle coming in hot. And a scratch for John McCardle, but just want to reiterate, when you talk about like the practical application of what you're seeing right now, especially with the touring class, right? These heavies, these big airplanes, you've got people like Brandon Korn, you've got people like Chip Ferguson, John Douglas, John McCardle, Luke Strandlin with these bigger airplanes especially. I mean, and anyone can help in a disaster situation like that, but these bigger airplanes sure do make a bigger difference as well. So this is a practical application of STOL flying, right? You're going to load that airplane up. You're going to get supplies into what used to not be the backcountry after a natural disaster like the hurricanes and deliver supplies where they're needed. We are so proud at National STOL that so many of our pilots and friends and fellow STOL freaks and av geeks chipped in to help make a difference during that time of need in our community, and we are excited that they will come and do it again when they are called. Here comes Brandon Korn. Little bit short for Brandon Korn. You heard him say with that interview with Brennan, he was going to try to get it dialed in, figure out exactly where the power ratio had to be to keep it nice and low, where to cut the throttle from a sight picture perspective. The Beaver is prowling in the distance. Look at that airplane. That is so cool. Can't help myself. Got to get a video of it. Look at that. Beaver time 1000 here at Sulphur Springs, Texas. You're witnessing National STOL history with that absolute beast of an airplane flying there. And super consistent. Let's go back into the scores. Chip Ferguson, think of how big this airplane is right now. Over 3,000 pounds empty, and it's taking off in 240 feet on the first run, 286 feet on the second run. Combined score of 492 that first run, waiting on the landing score to come in. Brandon Korn's best scores so far in practice, 382. John McCardle at the front of the touring class in practice with a combined score of 300. And Luke Strandland just behind him with a combined score of 312. Now, there's one more run of practice to go. Keith Lang, by the way, if you're keeping score, he's going to be in that unlimited class. Let's check out his scores. 2 DQs so far, but a 109-foot takeoff and an 81-foot takeoff with a 46-foot landing with a scratch and a 79-foot landing with a scratch. And those are the kind of numbers you'd expect in the unlimited class. Luke Strandland now getting ready for the third run of touring practice. Again, his best score, 492. Last run was a combined score of 528. We've got a lot of engine noise hanging out here. There's a little bit more for you. Luke Strandland getting that tail nice and high. Yanking a little early. A little bit of bounce. It didn't soar into the air. Luke Strandland flying down all the way from Mora, Minnesota. Started flying in 2014. Began competing in National STOL last year in 2023. Here's Keith Lang in the Super Cub, getting ready for his unlimited class action. Gonna see a bit shorter of a takeoff from him. Just right around 75 feet for Keith Lang. John McCardle, your current first place in the season standings, looking to solidify that lead he has in front of Brandon Korn tomorrow. Watch how physical everything is for John McCardle in the cockpit. His flap handle is all the way down on the floor, and he needs to pull back on it really aggressively. So you're going to see him lean as he pushes that yoke forward. It's got a yoke instead of a stick inside. He pushes that yoke forward. Watch how aggressively he'll reach to the floor and grab that flap handle to give him that burst of lift. And yank! Look at that. Really clean for John McCardle, sub 125. Brandon Korn in the beast of the 205. Here we go with Brandon Korn. Flaps already down. He's got those electric flaps. He's got to keep him engaged right away. Pulls back. Look at that. I believe that may have been shorter than John McCardle that time. Here comes the Beaver, which put in work. Huge, amazing, so fun. Fly that into Alaska. Go hunting, load it up with a moose. Bring it home in the venerable Beaver. Getting that engine totally spooled up. It's going to get loud in here. And let's see if he's as consistent, maybe a little bit longer this time as the others. Okay. So we got some questions in the chat we got to talk to you about here. We got Dale in the chat saying, how do they not nose over taking off like that? And so here's the thing. You saw actually during the rookie class how high the tail, I mean, unfortunately it ended with a prop strike, but you could see how high the tail needs to be to actually impact the grass. It is incredibly high. When you are a tail wheel student, when I was learning in the J3, my instructor actually put me in the cockpit and raised the tail up so I could see how high it could be. Here's Luke Strandland with a scratch, working that reverse pitch propeller. So there's a lot more room for error than you'd expect. And since they're in forward motion already, it's really just about being precise about your movement. But when you fly tailwheel aircraft, you practice something called a wheel landing, where you put the main wheels down first and you balance on those wheels, and you can kind of learn where the point of no return is. But because you've got so much airflow going over your tail, you're typically not going to get into a nose over situation on takeoff. The issue typically is on landing, like we saw today with that RANS aircraft. So that, I hope, answers the question for Dale. The other question from Dale I'll answer in a second. Keith Lang now dropping it really nice, right around a little bit over 75 feet on the rollout. Lexi with a little, he dunked it, pantomime there, digging that. So the question also from Dale is, do they follow a standard traffic pattern around 1,000 feet above the ground? And if I'm not mistaken, we typically fly at 500 feet AGL, and that's mostly to keep things a little tight, keep things a little bit faster for competition. We don't need to, because we're coming in slow, we're managing all that energy. It's a takeoff and landing competition. We can fly a little bit lower pattern. Here's John McCardle with a bouncing scratch in the mall and keeping it under control there. John McCardle, a little sporty at the end. Look at the windsock. It's definitely drooping down. We have a lot less wind than we did at the beginning of the day. Brandon Korn coming in on final approach. There's that windsock again. A lot less wind than we had earlier. Brandon Korn from Gauss, Texas, from Hearn, Texas. Third generation owner of Korn Collision Center, which was actually established in 1948. He also used to race wing sprint cars, which is pretty cool. 2023 Heavy Touring National Champion. Check out the wind, live weather here, 6 knots from 330. Density altitude still nothing really to worry about, 1,321 feet. Brandon Korn now, short final. touched down right around the 50-foot mark. And one thing you'll notice about Brandon Korn is he is not afraid to work those Cessna spring gear. Not afraid at all to just plop it down. It's not about passenger comfort when you are flying competitive STOL. And Brandon Korn is not afraid to really work the aircraft. Look at that, just plopping it in, dropping it like it's hot. So that's going to wrap up that round of practice in the touring class. Check out the scores. John McCardle coming in with a really impressively low score. Oh, the Beaver's still got to come in, but let's wrap it up while he does. 232 feet combined for John McCardle. Brandon Korn with 310. Luke Strandland with the best combined score of practice, 312 feet. And the Beaver with an impressive 492. Let's see if he can beat it. He did a 325-foot takeoff, good over the line, gracefully down. That is such a big airplane. Honey, if you're watching, I would totally take the de Havilland Beaver as a Christmas present. That would be fine. I would manage if you picked one of those up for me. So there's the Beaver coming in. Best takeoff with the Beaver was 240 feet with takeoff with a 252-foot landing. I don't believe this one will be shorter than that yet, 280 feet. So 492 feet combined in an airplane that can weigh, I mean, it can just weigh so much. It can weigh up to 5,100 pounds depending what you put in it. That is nothing to sneeze at. And that thing is just so cool. Watch them fly in at the beginning of practice today. And if you're here in Sulphur Springs, I'd urge you to, once the pits are open, to come visit. Go poke your head around, talk to Chip, and look at how massive that airplane is. Just really, really amazing. So we are going to take a quick break and be back with more practice here in Sulphur Springs, Texas. Spooky holiday episode, National STOL.
At Aerolids, we believe that innovation is equal parts inspiration and perspiration. Since our inception in 2006, we embarked on a mission to redefine the expectations of aerospace lighting. Entering the aerospace lighting market, which had remained largely unchanged for 50 years and in drastic need of a new product with fresh look and unequaled performance, Aerolids was inspired to redefine the expectations, which resulted in a series of innovative designs. Hungry for new ideas, backed by a company that valued the patronage, customers quickly adopted the new standard of quality, design, and performance never seen before in the industry. Over the past 12 years, Aerolids installation, ranging from the experimental and 23 markets up to the space and military applications, with over 15 tactical military platforms featuring products in both overt and covert operations. Aerolids continues to lead the industry in design, reliability, and unsurpassed performance. Unique in its presence and unmatched in its perseverance, Aerolids serves the aviation market from one spectrum to the next. From you to you too, Aerolids is redefining the expectations.
Well, a friend of mine, actually it was Corey Robin, told me about these flying eyes glasses while we were at Oshkosh. We went and checked them out, and they're awesome. But what I really like is the glasses themselves. They're very light. The earpieces are real thin and flexible, so you don't even know you have them on under a headset. If I put my headset on, I mean, they're just as comfortable as could be, and they're so thin, I can actually take them on and off without removing my headset. I couldn't do that with my other glasses. And then the other really cool thing about these, they make some awesome sunglasses, but they have these cool sunglass lenses that just snap on. So now instead of having to carry a big extra glass case in my pocket, that's all I got to carry to take my sunglasses with me. So there's several things about them that I'm really, really liking. Flying eyes. Awesome glasses.
Welcome back to a special Halloween practice of National STOL. We are having so much fun today practicing for Lonestar STOL, which is tomorrow, and the national championships here in Sulphur Springs, Texas, which will be on Saturday. And we're going to go to the pits now. Brennan is with Luke Strandland in front of that amazing Murphy Super Rebel.
Thanks, Ryan. We're here with Luke. Luke, you seem to be getting really comfortable with that reverse pitch prop. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I haven't had a whole lot of time with it still, but it's definitely helped my bad landings today. And I don't think people realize how much it's cutting off of my takeoffs. You know, just that better prop is probably cut 50 to 75 feet off of my takeoffs too. So it's actually equaled them out. I used to be way longer on my takeoffs, and now they're a little closer to each other. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, you're looking really good out there. Back to you, Ryan.
That's something that we haven't really talked about, is that improvement in takeoff distance. So thank you for that little tidbit, Brennan and Luke. Really great performance by Luke. He's currently in third place in the season standings for the touring class with 78 season points. So really, I mean, it's really tight in the touring class right now. You got John McCardle up front with 112. Brandon Korn trying to defend with 103. Luke Strandland with 78. Kyle Bushman, who I don't believe is here this weekend, in fourth place with 76 season points in that massive, amazing four-place Super Cub, weird, totally gigantic airplane called the Boss, which is just huge. It looks like it's, we've said in the broadcast before that it's shoveling the air out of its way. So we're getting ready for more practice here in Sulphur Springs, Texas. Want to talk about our friends at Aero LEDs. You just heard the commercial, but we just want to thank them again. They're an industry pioneer and leader in LED-based aerospace lighting. You can see them on Steve Henry's airplane. It's going to be flying a little bit later in the Unlimited class. They offer gift certificates as prize considerations. They're actually designed and manufactured in Boise, Idaho, which I didn't know, right there. Up in Idaho, we were not too far from there in Ontario, Oregon for Oregon Trail STOL. So big thanks to Aero LEDs for all of their support. Now it's time for our friends in the adventure class to compete. We've got Luke Spohr getting ready to practice. This is where the MOACs, the mother of all clubs, where these aircraft come out to play, and they were all born here. You're going to see a few of them trying to defend against airplanes like the classic Carbon Cub and the Badlands Travelers. Here's Luke Spohr with the gun racks. Off a little bit over 75 feet. James Barkheimer in the Carbon Cub, another kind of quintessential Bush airplane. He's got the belly pod hanging down there, those giant 35-inch Bush wheels. He comes from Ira Ann, Texas. Getting his helmet all sorted, checking out some things in the cockpit there. Probably flipping switches. Pilots love to flip switches. And really gracefully off, pulled maybe just a second early. Here comes race 34. This is going to be competing in the unlimited class. Justin Metters at the controls. He's from Mineral Wells, Texas. You might recognize that name. Justin Metters is a 3-time international Formula One racing national champion from the Reno Air Races. 300 horsepower Yamaha Sidewinder engine, just thrusting that thing into the air. It's got a 92-inch 4-bladed prop. And we were talking about empty weights during the touring class. We had, 3,000-pound empty weights. This airplane has similar horsepower to a lot of those airplanes, but is only 800 pounds empty. That is cool to see. Justin Metters at the controls. Again, 3-time international Formula One racing national champion. Here's Luke Spohr back in the adventure class in the MOAC. Too close to call. Really dynamic braking there for Luke Spohr. And I believe race control is going to call that a scratch. We'll wait for the official word. In National STOL, particularly this season when it changed a little bit, the pilot rules committee got together and decided to change it where instead of landing on the line or after, you actually just have to land after. You cannot touch the line at all or it's a scratch. James Barkheimer in the 2009 Carbon Cub Crafters EX. This airplane, 180 horsepower. Titan 340 engine. Empty weight, 1,080 pounds. Nicely over the line for James Barkheimer. I do think if you watch Luke Spohr and James Barkheimer fly, you can tell that the gun racks help. I think the gun racks add at least a couple of pounds of lift and a couple of horsepower. It really helps the airplane get into the air. So good for them on adding that modification. All seriousness, though, James Barkheimer, excellent pilot. Currently in 5th place in the season standings. Justin Metters. Right on the line. It's going to be a question for Lexi. You could see her looking, trying to figure out exactly where it touched down. And they're going to call that a scratch at race control. Getting ready for the next run of this little gaggle of aircraft. Want to talk about our friends at iFly EFB. They are giving a prize to all of our pilots. It rotates through the classes every competition. And iFly EFB is the complete EFB app for Android, iOS, and Windows that has all of the advanced features pilots want and the most intuitive flight planning and navigation solution on the market. iFly EFB brings together the perfect balance of technology and real-world flight experience. If you want to load up iFly EFB and learn a little bit more about this airport that we're out, you can go to type in Kilo Sierra Lima Romeo. That's KSLR in your EFB app, and it will get us all set up. And while we get ready for this next run of practice, let's throw it back to the pits where Brennan, our intrepid sideline reporter, has... Who does he have there? John McCardle?
Thanks, Ryan. We're here with John. You and Brandon have been going back all season. How do you think you guys are going to come out at the end?
It's going to be close. I'm up by 9 points right now. So, I mean, some person gets first, that's 8 points. Luke could come in, get second, one person gets third, and I could be second place real quickly. I think I beat him by maybe 50 feet in practice, but Brandon, he's always a sleeper. You think he's like, oh, I got him by 50 foot in practice, and then he'll come out and just do a ridiculous run in the finals. So you have to be on the person that wins is the person that flies the best tomorrow.
Absolutely. Back to you, Ryan.
Spoken like a true competitor. It's going to be amazing to see them duke it out tomorrow. Here's Luke Sporer ready for practice run number 2. First takeoff for Luke Sporer was 80 feet, but he followed it up with a scratch. James Barkheimer at the line. His combined score last time was 201 with a 105-foot takeoff and a 96-foot landing. Luke Sporer number just came in 77 feet on that takeoff. Here's James. Definitely sub 100 from my position. I saw, let's see what the judges say. 83 feet on that takeoff for James Barkheimer, so a big improvement for him, down from 105. Justin Metters. That thing is bonkers. That's insane. That airplane's insane, and what's even more interesting and cool is that he's actually flying that aircraft with hand controls. It's all based on hands, throttle, rudder, stick. It's all just with hand controls, the way Justin Metters does that. Just really cool that he was able to maintain an accessible way into the sport and modify the aircraft to do that. So not only is it an insanely innovative airplane from its horsepower, it's also insanely innovative from its implementation of the controls. Luke Sporer now maybe good over the line, stopped sub 100. See it drop out there. It stops flying right there. And it is a scratch. James Barkheimer on short final. Really stable approach. It's kind of what he's known for. Uses airplane to get into the backcountry to do some hunting. Holding it off. Good over the line for James Barkheimer. Getting it nice and stopped. Now, one thing, I think I just heard it. I'm not totally sure, but I think I just heard James, as the tail started to come up, he applied a little bit of power to get a little more wind over that tail. When we had that prop strike earlier this morning, Scott Elmore, one of the things that he could have done was apply, it's counterintuitive. You're heading to, the nose is heading toward the grass. What do? You have to apply a little bit of power to get a little more wind over the tail to help it push it back down. That's counterintuitive. I don't know if I'd be able to do it. I certainly couldn't. Here is Justin Metters. Scratch for Justin Metters, but that airplane is looking to fight. This is someone who's going to be competing against the greats, Dan Reynolds, Steve Henry, Keith Lang. Rick Boardman's also going to be competing in limited class. So he's got his work cut out for him. That class, so amazing, right? You've got 300-plus horsepower Yamaha Sidewinder. You've got a Yamaha 998T you're going to see a little bit later today, flown by Steve Henry, that's also pumping out 300 horsepower. And then you're going to see the opposite version of that whole equation with Dan Reynolds in his 1983 Chinook Valdez Special, which is powered by a Rotax 670. Luke Sporer getting ready to go. Tail up nice and high. Again, with the sub 100-foot takeoff. Best takeoff so far for Luke Spohr, 77 feet. Barkheimer on the roll and off short, a little bit over 100 feet. And Justin Metters in that insane, limitless aircraft. And if you can watch, look at that. He just, I don't know if you noticed that, lowered the tail down for more angle of attack, and it just claws its way into the air. Totally depressurizing the tail shock to get more angle attack, which is the angle at which the wind hits the wing. That's a cool party trick. We've seen Steve Henry do that as well in his aircraft. Speaking of tail wheels, we got to talk about our friends at Tundra Tailwheel. They're here on the field this weekend. If you're fed up with tail wheel shimmy, you're looking for a sleeker design with the added security of a locking tail wheel, scratch for Luke Spohr. Lexi throws the blue flag on the ground. If you're looking for a sleeker design with the added security of a locking tail wheel, these tail wheels are proudly made in America. Tundra Tailwheels delivers exactly what you need. You can upgrade your aircraft today at tundratailwheel.com. They're compatible with Leaf Spring, T3, Acme Aero, and TK1 suspensions. Check them out. You're going to see it on Steve Henry's aircraft a little bit later. Here, Barkheimer coming around the bend. Here he is. Over the taxiway, a little bit higher this time. Dropping it in, want to get that energy down into the ground, not forward. Great use of those shocks. He had a 99-foot takeoff. Let's see what that comes in on the touchdown score. 96 feet for the landing, with a combined score of 195. His best so far in practice, 181 feet. Justin Metters holding it off with throttle. Good over the line. Now he's got to get it stopped. Amazing. That thing is going to be so fun to watch in competition tomorrow against all of its peers. We've watched as an aviation community as Justin Metters has spent his entire career going fast, and now he is spending the entire part of his career going slow. Let's look at the 2024 season standings right now while everyone taxis back to the pits. In the touring class, John McCardle in the lead with 112 points. Brandon Korn with 103. Third place, Luke Strandland with 78. That's as of Music City STOL in Nashville. In the backcountry class, Jerry Clemens with a healthy lead of 120 points. Jeff Pohl in second place with 68 points. Brad Crawford in third with 65. So it's a battle for second in the backcountry class. John Luton in fourth with 54. In the adventure class, Brian Steck in the MOAC, high strung with 98 points this season. Jared Gerritsen in the Badlands Traveler with 86 points. And Jeff Daly nipping at his heels with 81 points, currently in third place, also in a Badlands Traveler. In the sport class, you saw him fly earlier today. Pat McIntyre with a combined season total of 149 points. Joel Milloway with 101 points combined. Lee Boyd in third with 57 points. And in the unlimited class, Steve Henry holding first with 101 season points. Dan Reynolds with 69. Hal Stockman with 52 points this season. If you haven't seen it on social media, Hal Stockman did have an engine fire in the days leading up to this competition. He was able to put the aircraft on the ground and get out relatively safely. He just had a minor burn injury to his ankle. He is safe, but his aircraft was destroyed. So you should go to GoFundMe. Maybe the easiest way to find it is go to Trent Palmer's social channels and find the GoFundMe that's been set up for Hal Stockman. I'm hearing in my ears now it's also in National STOL's social channels, so that would be even easier. Go to nationalstol.com, go to Facebook, Instagram. You can find links to the GoFundMe for Hal Stockman after that devastating engine fire. Here is Jerry Clemens in the double deuce, the Husky. Sub 150 feet. Jeff Harrell in the Scout. Pulling too early. Watch that tail wheel shimmy back and forth there. And another Scout, although this one's a little bit older. Working ranch plane floating by Scott Sweet from Hyannis, Nebraska. He's putting that thing to work. Dropping those flaps, getting up nice and cleanly. Sub 175, maybe 174 feet for Scott Sweet on that takeoff. That aircraft that Jeff Harrell and Scott Sweet are flying, of course, the grandson of the plane that Glenn Roberts was flying in practice, the Champ. It's kind of a little bit of lineage there for you if you're following along. If you're a big Av geek like me. Well, they're looping around in the pattern. It's time to talk about our friends at Sarasota Avionics. They're a long-term partner of National STOL. They're your authorized Garmin dealer and a #1 aircraft avionics installing dealer in the nation for panel mount GPS avionics systems. They offer Garmin prizes for all of the unlimited class pilots. Corey Sloan from Waller, Texas, landing there. He's a 737 captain based out of Houston, Texas. Used to race a Highlander in STOL drag in Arkansas. And this aircraft's a 2020 Husky A1C 180, nicknamed Lefty Lucy after Corey Sloan being a left leg amputee. Jerry Clemens on final approach now. Nice over the line. And guess what he's got working for him? The same thing you saw with Luke Strandland. Jerry Clemens rocking that reversible pitch propeller as well. It's a 200 horsepower aircraft with an MT reverse thrust prop. Here comes the first of our Scouts, this one flown by Jeff Harrell. Oak Grove, Louisiana. well over the line. Big bounce in the Scout. Obviously, the Citabria, the Scout, they're known for that spring landing gear, similar to a Cessna has. And if you don't modulate your descent rate into the ground gingerly enough, they can spring you right back up into the air. And I think we saw that there with Jeff Harrell. Here comes Scott Sweet now in the 1974 Bellanca Scout. Also see those spring gear at play, but you saw the touchdown was a bit gentler. It's that fine line in STOL flying, because if you don't land firmly enough, you're not putting enough energy into the ground versus forward. But if you land too firmly in an airplane with gear like that, you're going to be thrust back into the air. And they're taxiing back around for another go here in practice. Jeff, let's start with Corey Sloan. Combined score of 389 feet. Jerry Clemens with a combined score of 259. Jeff Harrell's first run, combined score of 487, and Scott Sweet putting it down a full 387 feet combined. That's a full 100 feet shorter. Corey Sloan giving it the beans, and he's off. Nice and cleanly. Here comes Jerry Clemens from Wichita, Kansas. Clemens Aviation, one of our local sponsors for this event. Heard a little bit of a decrease in engine power there as Jerry got off the ground, but he reapplied that throttle, no problem. Here's Jeff Harrell now in the 2016 Scout. Jeff Harrell is a crop duster. Flies about 700 hours per season. Nice takeoff for Jeff Harrell. Just wrenching that thing up into the sky. Scott Sweet at the line. Here goes Scott Sweet in the Sweet Scout. Oh, that right main hanging on a little bit longer. They come around the pattern. I want to remind you that you can vote for your favorite pilot, nationalstol.com/vote. That's nationalstol.com/vote. You can vote all weekend through the end of Lonestar STOL. Fan favorite pilot actually does win some prizes. Here comes Corey Sloan in the Husky. Lefty loosey. Good over the line. Got to dissipate some speed and stopped. Next up, Jerry Clemens. Jerry Clemens now holding it off. Whoa, not messing around there, getting it stopped super short. Whoa, Jerry Clemens aggressively on the reverse pitch propeller. And that'll bring him down to his best combined score of practice so far with a combined score of 216 feet. Jeff Harrell over the line. Stop sub 250. That may be his best landing so far, his best run so far, actually. His takeoff this run was 178 feet. And his landing just came in at 242 feet, so that's a combined score of 420 feet, down from 487. Scott Sweet now good over the line very accurately, getting on those binders, stopping sub 200. So his previous landing was 214 feet at a combined score of 387. This takeoff was better this run, down from 173 to 166. And this landing just came in at 192 feet, so that gives him a combined score of 358. If you were holding competition today, you'd be seeing a pretty tight matchup with the exception of Jeff Harrell, but who's not practicing right now? Jeff Pohl and Brad Crawford, who are definitely the wild cards. You never know what they are going to do. Corey Sloan now on the line, getting ready to go. His best takeoff and landing again, combined score of 332 in the Husky. Air bosses have given him the green flag. Here goes Corey Sloan, full power. Flaps down, stick back. Look at Jerry Clemens trying to grab every ounce of crosswind. Now look at the windsock too. It's pretty limp. There's not a lot of wind coming at us right now, and it's all coming at us from the left. So Jerry Clemens is literally right on the edge of the race course, trying to get any wind he can on the nose. And look at how calculated Jerry Clemens is. Oh, he pulled a little early there. That one didn't want to fly that time. Look at how calculated he is. He always gets that tail up exactly to the place he wants it. He's looking at the sight picture. How do the pipes and the various pieces of the windscreen, the instrument panel, how does that line up with the grass, with the ground and the horizon? It's called attitude flying. You're trying to fly by and take off by exactly how you want it to look visually. So he gets that very precise, and then he releases the brakes. Speaking of releasing the brakes, Jeff Harrell off in the Scout. Scott Sweet waiting in the wings. Jeff Harrell with his best takeoff so far with 173 feet. That takeoff for Jerry Clemens, his worst so far. Definitely timed it just a little too soon. We hear that from our more experienced pilots. If you pull early, it can add 30, 40, 50 feet on. Here comes Scott Sweet now with a real clean departure. Sub 150. And let's throw it over to Brennan in the pits, who's with Justin Menners.
Justin, you're looking really good out there. Tell us a little bit about the hand controls you got going on inside your airplane.
Yeah, so I have a left stick in the airplane that does left and right rudder. I have throttle on that stick and left brake and also flaps. And then the center stick is normal pitch and roll control, right brake, and push to talk. A little bit going on.
A little bit. Yeah, all right. Well, back to you, Ryan.
So what's crazy about that, and I've actually interviewed Justin about this before, and I didn't put two and two together, that he actually has differential braking between his two hands, and that kind of breaks my brain to think about putting that all together like that. So that is super, super cool to see. Here comes Corey Sloan now on final approach in that Husky. Flaps are totally down. Wig wag lights working for us. Good over the line, according to Lexi. And he's going to get it stopped. That was his, I would call it his middle score of the day with a 158-foot takeoff. But if he can make up for it on the landing, that's all right. Jerry Clemens licking his wounds a little bit on that takeoff. Coming in now on short final. The scores in for Corey Sloan. That's going to be his best combined score of practice here at Lonestar STOL with a combined score of 331. So improved by a foot. Woo! The other thing that you can hear when Jerry Clemens is coming over the line is he has that airplane definitely stalled, right? He's got, you can hear the angle of attack indicator in the cockpit just blaring at him. Beep, beep, beep. That means, hey, dude, get your nose down. You're going to stop flying. Of course, the joke's on the angle of attack indicator because he wants to stop flying. He wants to land with as little energy in the aircraft as possible. Here comes Jeff Harrell touching down the tail right before the line, modulating that. Woo! I'm a little gun shy now about tails going up, but he mastered that really well, working those brakes, working that rudder and that throttle to keep the tail down. Well done by Jeff Harrell. Here comes Scott Sweet now. On short final. Watching him just bring that Scout in. Good over the line for Scott Sweet. A little bit of bounce this time, and the tail's going to come up, but he's going to keep it nice and low as he works those brakes. Pat McIntyre came and joined the mic with me in Nashville, and we talked a lot about braking. I always say heavy braking, and he's a flight instructor. He said, not heavy braking, the appropriate amount of braking. And that's definitely what we saw there with our friend Scott Sweet. So, heading back to the pits are your backcountry class competitors getting ready for tomorrow. And while they do that, I want to talk about our friends at Lift Aviation. Lift's love for flying drives them to deliver only the finest in aviation products to market. They believe today's pilots deserve much more than what is currently offered in a way of products they wear in the cockpit. Lift Aviation is bridging the gap and making products that are stronger and lighter that you can trust. Lift Aviation also provides 2 helmets for our rookies to borrow. So if they're getting just started in National STOL, they need a helmet. They can just use one of the ones provided by Lift Aviation to make sure that they are safe. And here's a really cool thing. The annual points winner of each class at the end of the year, which is Saturday, gets a Lift Aviation helmet. So that is super cool. They've been working towards that all season. Let's see who we've got coming up to the line now. It's a Badlands Traveler. That's Jared Garrettson. The Badlands Traveler making a huge impact on the circuit this season. Jared's from Wamego, Kansas. Full throttle for Jared. And look how short he's off, just over 50 feet for Jared Garrett. So you can see why that Badlands Traveler is not messing around. Minimal wind compared to this morning. Here's Jeff Daly, also in a Badlands Traveler, probably putting out one of our most viral clips of the year at Moses Lake. Trying to grab a bite of that crosswind. That's something Steve Henry started and everyone soon followed in the circuit. Jeff Daly climbing like a homesick angel in the Badlands. And you can see why folks like Brian Steck have been working so hard to modify and innovate to fend off these Badlands. This class is the class that you're going to see our hosts, the Legend Aircraft Company. You're going to see their aircraft fighting in as well. We're going to see Brian Steck in the MOAC, the mother of all Cubs. Colin Kaniva will hopefully be here in the Legend Cub MOAC called Beast Mode. You already saw the MOAC piloted by Luke Spohr earlier today. He's going to be competing against these planes. Legend Aircraft continues to be one of the most coveted American manufactured sport aircraft. It's a modern Legend, and those that have flown one consider the Legend Cub to be the most gratifying recreational aircraft in the skies today. It combines the best from the past with an obtainable wish list of modern enhancements. American Legend Aircraft Company has engineered in all the safety and comfort and convenience options imaginable. You can learn more at legend.aero. And I can't wait to see more MOACs fly in practice today, particularly High Strung, which has been built by Brian Steck, coming after these two in the pattern right now, Jared Garrettson and Jeff Daly. Here comes Jared Garrettson now in the gray and black Badlands Traveler all the way from Wamego, Kansas. This is his first season competing in National STOL. Watch how slow he's going to get this aircraft as he comes up to the line. Dropping it in. Was it good though? Let's go to the replay. That is a tough call. Then they're calling it a scratch by a full foot, so I don't know what, I can't see. Maybe part of it is things have changed in the booth a little bit here for me. Just trying to protect myself. So let's see if Jeff Daly can slash it in, lower those scores. And there's frustration by Lexi Duncan on the line as another incredibly close landing comes in. but that one will be called a scratch by race control as well. Badlands Travelers get up for a second run at practice. Here we go. No, that was nuts. That was absolutely insane. Sub 50 feet. Jeff Daly coming up to the line, tail already in the air. He's going to get positioned. From Arthur, Nebraska. His previous takeoff, 40 feet. Here we go. Sub 50 feet again. Maybe even sub 40 feet. We'll see what it comes in at. And while the Badlands Travelers make a loop around the pattern, let's go back to the pits. We've got Jerry Clemens standing by.
Live? Jerry, you and Jeff Pohl have been battling it out all season long. What's it going to take to come home with the win?
Be Jeff Pohl.
Well, you heard it here. Back to you, Ryan.
And that is the world's shortest interview by the most succinct man. That was, of course, Jerry Clemens with Brennan Thompson in the pits. Our Badlands Travelers are practicing right now. If you're joining us, I just want to say Happy Halloween from all of us at National STOL here at Sulphur Springs Municipal Airport in Sulphur Springs, Texas, the home of Legend Aircraft Company. And we, of course, are in the middle of open practice as we gear up for Lonestar STOL tomorrow and the National Championships on Saturday. It is one busy STOL weekend this weekend. If you are anywhere in Texas, which I know, and I understand that everything's big in Texas, including the state. But if you are anywhere in Texas, you got to get in your car, get in your airplane, get on your bicycle, and just point it towards Sulphur Springs and just be here this weekend. If you're walk, I don't know, could you even walk here from like the other side of Texas by Saturday? Maybe not. It seems pretty far. It's a big place. But come on down. We'd love to have you. Here comes Jared Garrettson in the Badlands Traveler. Little burst of power to try to get him over the line. Lexi is calling it a scratch. It looks like that left main touched down just a little bit too soon. That is a second scratch for Jared Garrettson. Jeff Daly with a jaw-dropping 38-foot takeoff. Hovering it in. Absolutely hovering it in. And another scratch for the Badlands Travelers. Here's the thing. You can be the best pilot in the world. You can have the best airplane in the world. But if you scratch, it doesn't matter. You gotta be over that line. And right now, both Badlands Travelers, Jared Garrettson and Jeff Daly, have scratched both times. If this were competition, it would all come down to this. Now, there's a reason we offer practice, right? You want to be able to dial in as a pilot. You got to know if you're going to be competitive. You got to know the sight pictures. You got to know the landmarks around the airport for the traffic pattern. You got to know all of that. And so that's why we're here. Look at the differences between the two airplanes. Jared Garrettson off sub 50 feet. Look at how much more angle of attack Jared has coming up to the line with those bigger tires. But those bigger tires come at the expense of more weight. Jeff Daly, less angle of attack sitting at the line, but less weight. The plane is not insignificantly lighter than Jared Garrettson's version of the Badlands Traveler. Here he goes. Another really short takeoff for Jeff Daly. His second one, again, 38 feet. And by the way, not to be outdone, Jerry Gerritson's last takeoff, 39 feet. These are insane numbers. These are unlimited class numbers. Let's look at those numbers right now. Justin Metters in a 300 horsepower insane airplane took off in 40 feet. So we are seeing numbers sub that by the Badlands Travelers. 39 feet for Jerry Gerritson, 41 feet on this takeoff for Jeff Daly. Now, neither of them have gotten a landing in that matters. And if you're Brian Steck, Luke Spohr, or Colin Kaniva, you're watching this right now going, well, if they can't put one on the board, how scared do I really need to be tomorrow? Don't forget to vote tomorrow, nationalstol.com/vote. I mean, you could vote right now, nationalstol.com/vote. We'd love to have you be part of this family. Come check us out. Like us on all the socials. Visit the merch booth. Wear it with pride. Here comes Jared Gerritson now with those massive tires. That was good over the line, and he plopped it in. Not afraid. The other thing you need to look at between these airplanes is look at the tail shape. Mooney doing Mooney stuff on the hard surface, over the hard surface runway there. Jared Gerritson with a combined score finally on the board in practice with 103 feet. Jeff Daly down short, but another scratch. Watch it on the replay. I mean, let's be real. He has it dialed in, but he has it dialed in like a foot too short every time. So that is going to round out the practice for the Badlands Travelers. Jared Gerritson coming in with 103 feet combined, and Jeff Daly with shorter scores, except with the hat trick DQ. And now, if that had happened in competition, he would be a sad boy. He would be a sad, sad boy if that had happened in competition. But it didn't. It's still anyone's game tomorrow as we see Jeff Daly and Jared in the Badlands fight against Luke in the MOAC, fight against Brian in the Legend Aircraft MOAC, fight against James Barkheimer in the Carbon Cub. There's even names on here that we haven't even seen today. Colin Kaniva. We've got Steve Henry, Dan Reynolds in the Unlimited class. Everyone ready to fight for the finals. We'll be back with more STOL action in just a minute. But first, another word from our sponsors. Another spooky word from our sponsors. A special thanks to all our sponsors. Ladd Gardner Insurance, Aviation Protected, Legend Aircraft, not your grandfather's Cub. Get the right trailer for your job with USATrailersDirect.com. Sarasota Avionics, your authorized garment dealer. FlightHelmet.com, specializing in sales and service of flight helmets. Use code NSTOL50 for $50 off. Flying Eyes Optics, the lightest and most comfortable aviation sunglasses around. Lift Aviation, bridging the gap and making products that are stronger and lighter that you can trust. Aero LEDs, serving every spectrum of the worldwide aviation market. Red Tag Art, innovative and handcrafted aviation art and home goods. Legendary Aviation Coffee Company, where aviation passion flirts shamelessly with the seduction of coffee roasting. I Fly EFB. Fly your freedom. It's different up here. Tundra Tailwheels. Upgrade your aircraft today at tundratailwheel.com.
Sarasota was created actually back in the 70s, but we and Bert and Vince, my two partners, they've sold their business to Ryan and Sean, which is my two other partners now. We started around in 1999, 2000. Just had one little spot in this hangar, and we've built it up from there. So we've been here for 23 years now. And then we have 5 facilities now here in the state of Florida. First starts in Tampa, Sarasota. Venice here is our main headquarters, and we have Punta Gorda and then Fort Lauderdale, Lantana. Then we have partners in Brazil, South Africa, Greece, Tullahoma, Tennessee, all over the world. We're the largest Garmin dealer in the world, so that's probably what we've been known for. So we do more installs on aircraft, general aviation, anything really under 10,000 pounds than anybody else in the world. So, and we've been that for quite a few years now.
Looking for a more affordable entry into bush plane flying? How about paramotoring, aka the dirt bike of the sky? Paramotoring STOL is the next best thing, and this adventure motor that you wear on your back is your ticket to getting airborne quick. At Aviator Paramotor, our 2-week training takes you from zero to hero.
Sunrise this morning, it was beautiful. There was a thin layer of fog flying. It's just like all the stress and all that kind of just floats away. It's really peaceful.
From no experience to feeling confident and competent flying on your own. Let the team at Aviator Paramotor in Lake Wales, Florida teach you your new superpower of running into the sky. Classes are filling up quick, but there are spots available today, so call now. Side effects include, but not limited to, significant life changes, foot drags, ear-to-ear smiles. Find the extreme freedoms of ripping around the skies in your new adventure motor with friends.
And welcome back. We're here in Sulphur Springs, Texas. My name's Ryan Dabrowski. One of the things that I don't know if anybody knew, but I'm from Wisconsin, and we love the Green Bay Packers. We love. We got one of our volunteers here. Ryan's trying to get it. Oh, did we get it? Here, let's try one more time here. I've always wanted to be a field goal. I don't know if we're trying to get in it or if we're ring tossing onto it, but that's what we do here. So I'm going to just be down here some more and just see. Oh, that was a close one. Come on, buddy. For all the marbles. Oh, we didn't get it done. We didn't get it done, and that's okay. The things we do for you at home here at National STOL. We are gearing up for more practice here at Sulphur Springs, Texas. I'm going to sit back down, and I'm just going to put one of these on here for aesthetics. Oh, it's a big thing on my head. I got to reach all the way up here. Good try, Ryan. Good try. That was good. See, this is what it would have looked like. I don't even know if you can see that. Okay. Anyway, hope you're enjoying all the STOL action today, all the STOL practice. You're seeing some really heavy competition, and it's just practice. Everyone is gearing up for tomorrow. Again, tomorrow, the stakes are so high. Everyone is trying to get that last set of season points to solidify their lead or maybe infringe on somebody else's lead. It's getting really intense in here. So that's tomorrow. Then Saturday, the national champions, the top 5 pilots in the season standings to duke it out for one last bit of points to see who brings home the victory, the giant trophies, the giant head things. What is on me? Yeah, Ryan Dombrowski, field goal post. That's me bringing this here for you. Love it that you're joining us right now on Halloween, having so much fun with us. And we can't wait for the rest of the weekend to see how STOL works. I need to take this thing off because I can't actually wear my headset here to talk to you about this. I'm just going to take this. Oh, there we go. Look, it's quite large. One thing, go in the chat, too, and just tell us what was your favorite costume from today? What was your favorite thing that was on my body and or face today? we'd love to know. So I just need a minute to get this figured. We got Dan Reynolds of the Chinook in the distance there, gearing up that Rotax engine. Okay, there we go. We're getting it all sorted out here. This is live TV, folks, and I'm so proud to be a part of it. So yeah, what was your favorite? Was your favorite the goalpost, or was it the weird, the witch hat, or was it the weird devil thing? Oh, I got another one here. Look at this, guys. Well, I didn't even do this one yet. We got another one. That's coming at you. That's like 3D. It's 3D television, spooky stuff. Very threatening, spooky stuff here at National STOL. All right, we're gearing up for more practice. Dan Reynolds in that Chinook coming at you in just a little bit. He has done some insane things this season with this. He is like the Lotus, right? So you've got like two approaches to the unlimited class. You have folks like Dan Reynolds. Hal Stockman does this too with lightness, power and lightness, and then like a very lifty wing. You can see that with the Chinook as it taxis up to the line right now. The other thing that you can do in the unlimited class is you can just like brute force it. We saw Justin Metters doing that with his aircraft. It is massively powerful. So even though he's got all the aerodynamic benefits working for him, when he gets himself into a tough situation, he can also just rely on all that power to get him out. So two different approaches to kind of the same problem. Here's Rick Boardman, who's running just kind of a classic Carbon Cub, right? So Rick Boardman coming up right now. He'll be competing in the unlimited class in this 2015 Cub Crafters Carbon Cub SS. He's from Henderson, Nebraska, and he is off a little bit more than 75 feet. What's interesting is Rick Boardman normally has a belly pod on that airplane, and I wonder if it's going to be a difference for him aerodynamically. There's some talk about the belly pod providing like a lifting body effect on the airplane. Now, if you've never seen this airplane fly before, you're in for a treat. Here comes Dan Reynolds from Dawson up in Canada, 1983 Chinook Valdez Special. It is light, and it is out to fight. Dan Reynolds. Now, the big thing for Dan Reynolds, when we've interviewed him before, we've said, Dan, how are you going to beat Steve Henry? How are you going to beat Justin Metters? How are you going to beat Keith Lang? And he said the biggest thing for him is a healthy wind on the nose. Well, they go around in the pattern. Let's go back to the pits with Brennan and Jeff Daly.
All right, Jeff, you, Brian, and Jared have been battling all season. What's it going to take for the Badlands Travelers to come on top?
Oh, boy. You know, Brian's been tuning that airplane and his flying skills in all season. We've been lucky enough to sneak away with a couple wins, but it's really just always up to who flies good. I mean, if everything's working good for Brian tomorrow, that airplane is hard to beat. So we're just going to come out. We're going to give her everything we got, try to not to miss any steps, and make every run count.
All right, well, good luck to you. Back to you, Ryan.
Thanks, Jeff, and thanks, Brennan. Rick Boardman coming in practice with a scratch on his first run. Dan Reynolds coming around the bend in the Chinook. And this airplane is a highly modified 1983 Chinook WT-11. Dan is an expert at flying these aircraft. He's got over 6,000 hours on 4 of the Chinooks he's owned. He's been a Bush pilot flying Super Cubs and a Cessna 185 as well. 26-inch air streaks on this aircraft. Those are the tires if you're new here. Watch the modulation of power. Diving for it right on the line. Did it scratch, though? Stopped sub 50 feet. And that looks like a scratch. Yep. I'm guessing that's what race control is going to call it. A little bit of deformation of the wheels just before the line. And there it is, confirmed a scratch for Dan Reynolds. Now, let's just, for fun, let's compare these two airplanes. They will. Oh, we got another one. We got, looks like Nick Ardillo's back out to play. Nick Ardillo gets some practice in a different wind. Remember, this morning, he was practicing in heavier wind than now. We're at like nil wind, like just a handful of knots, if even that. Let's compare these scores right now. Dan Reynolds, if he hadn't scratched, 53-foot takeoff, 50-foot landing. Rick Boardman now, his previous run, $82-foot takeoff and a rollout on the landing. Look who just came out to play. It's Yeehaw 8, piloted by race number 44, Steve Henry from Nampa, Idaho. 300 horsepower! Sometimes it's just fun to yell that. That was something else. You see what I mean? We've got these short takeoffs and landings by Dan Reynolds in this light, kind of float like a butterfly, sting like a bee airplane. And then you've got the brute force of Yeehaw and the brute force of Justin Metters in the Limitless aircraft. Here's Dan Reynolds' second attempt. Off sub 50, but let's put it in perspective. Steve Henry, folks, that takeoff that Steve Henry did just moments ago, 20 feet. $20-foot takeoff for Steve Henry. How do you compete against that? Dan Reynolds doing his best with a 48-foot takeoff. Things are getting bonkers now as the unlimited class comes out to play. But remember, Jared Garrettson, Jeff Daly, also putting down sub 50-foot takeoffs, and they are not in the unlimited class. Nick Ardillo, good over the line. That was very precise. So far this morning, Nick Ardillo's best was 204 feet combined. A little bit longer this, no, not. I was totally wrong. I was expecting it to be a little bit longer, but look at that. 198 feet combined. Rick Boardman short with a scratch. Lexi feeling a little sheepish about having to raise that blue flag for Rick Boardman again. And the sunset, the beautiful Texas sunset, starting to happen here in Sulphur Springs, Texas. Here comes Steve Henry. Look how low he is now. Low over the ground. He's going to use that power to bring him in, drag it in, and that one looked a little short too. A scratch for Steve Henry. Compare that low approach, using power to hold you off the grass. Compare that to what you're going to see Dan Reynolds do next, which is similar to what we saw Luke Strandland do earlier today, right? That high approach, very more classic, I would call it, right? But you can't get, it's not safe to get as deep into the angle of attack, right? You're that high up, you can't risk a stall. You cannot lose flying speed. Now, let's be real. Dan Reynolds, we had a radar detector out at the Oshkosh, the EAA AirVenture STOL demo, and he was putting in sub 30 mile an hour approaches with a little bit of wind on the nose. So his stall speed, his margin of error is very different than what it might be for Steve Henry. But look, as he descends now, a little bit of power, holding it off. And the blue flag comes up from Lexi. We are scratching it up like a record here. We're just DJs. We're just DJing it in Sulphur Springs. That's another scratch on the board, this time for Dan Reynolds. So 2 scratches for Dan Reynolds. Lots of scratches all over the board today. I don't know if I've ever seen as scratch heavy of a practice as I did today. I'm looking at my practice scoreboard here. 1, 2, 5. I mean, we are well into the 20 to 30 scratches across all competitors. Here is Nick Ardillo wrenching it off in the Carbon Cub. Rick Boardman in his Carbon Cub coming up to the line. Here he is, full throttle off, sub 75. I mean, these are insanely short takeoffs and landings. Dan Reynolds' last landing, it was a scratch, but if it hadn't been, would have been between 35 and 40 feet. Here is Steve Henry now. I guess I should have warned you to plug your ears last time. Here it comes. And that is another sub 25-foot takeoff for Steve Henry. That, it just never gets old. Steve Henry was airborne before his tail wheel crossed the line. Here comes Dan Reynolds. A little bit longer than 50 feet this time for Dan Reynolds. He really needs the wind to help him be competitive against Steve Henry. And we don't know all of the modifications that have been done to Dan Reynolds' aircraft. But bone stock, his engine, bone stock, assuming no modifications at all, a Rotax 670 is only putting out about 92 horsepower. That's very similar to the Champ flown by Glenn Roberts. Nick Ardillo, good over the line in the Carbon Cub. And I don't know if you can see it, folks, but the sun is backlighting. I'm pretty sure there's like spiders flying through the air right now on whips of spider web. Rick Boardman now coming in a field of spiders. I guess that's fitting. It's fitting for Halloween. Spiders flying through the air. Not my super favorite thing. If you're from Texas, hop in the chat. What is actually happening with all these wisps flying through the sky right now? How afraid should I be about what is happening? Low again. Here comes Steve Henry working that throttle. Tail wheel down. Good over the line for Steve Henry. Heavy on those knobby tires. Working that traction. Sub 75 feet. That was an 18-foot takeoff for Steve Henry. That round, 18 feet, combined with a 64-foot landing. And they are now calling it a scratch. That would have been 82 feet combined for Steve Henry, but he's now double scratched as well. This is getting exciting going into competition tomorrow. There's no clear leader dialed in between these greats of STOL. The legends of STOL in front of you right now in the sunset. Here's Dan Reynolds dropping it in. We can hear it from here. Lexi called it a scratch. I am not convinced, but I'm just ever the optimist. Frame by frame we go. And she called it correctly. That was a scratch as well. 3 scratches for Dan Reynolds in practice today. We are scratched. Jeff Daly, 3 scratches. Jared Garrettson, 2 scratches. Luke Spohr, 3 scratches. Lee Boyd had 3 scratches today. This never happens in practice at National STOL. I cannot believe how challenging the conditions became for our pilots today. It may have something to do with the sunset. We have the wind back into the left, or not the wind, the sun. The sun is back into the left behind them. And I'm wondering if that's just making the line really hard to see today. The conditions from a wind perspective, while not super favorable, are not challenging like they've been earlier in the season. So very interesting what has been going on with all the scratches from all the pilots. We'll have to interview them and get more information for you tomorrow as we head into competition. And just like that, folks, it is the end of practice here at Lonestar STOL. Happy Halloween. We loved having you here with us. We loved sharing all of our passion for STOL with you at home. Again, my name is Ryan Dombrowski. It has been an absolute pleasure to share the day with you. Tune in tomorrow. Go to nationalstol.com. Tune in tomorrow on Facebook and YouTube to watch the Lonestar STOL competition, and then hold the time this weekend because we'll be back for the National Championships. I will see you tomorrow, STOL freaks. Thanks so much for watching. See you soon.